Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of First Impression Sports Talk. I'm Jasmine Pollock, the host, and we're going to get into a lot of things, and we're going to talk about all things college football, so let's get started.
Welcome to Jasmine Pollock's First Impression Sports Talk, the fastest growing sports talk show in the country. And now, here's your host, Jasmine Pollock.
Welcome back to Jasmine's First Impression Sports Talk. And to kick the day off, we're going to talk about Coach Deion Sanders taking that job with the Colorado Buffaloes. Now, let's bring in Jeremiah, and we're going to talk about this whole situation. So, Jeremiah, Deion Sanders went to Jackson State. He had 2 back-to-back SWAC championships under his belt with Jackson State, finished 27-5 overall with Jackson State. Now he's taking his talents to Colorado and changing that whole team in that conference, which happens to be the Pac-12. What was your take on this, and what do you expect Colorado to be in the next couple of years?
Well, when it came to my take on this, just like, we maybe talked about before, and I talked about other people, he should have went probably to maybe a different school. I understand if you wanted to go to Colorado and, they have a bad record these last couple of years, but still at the same time, I just feel like you going there is kind of like going to be a little of a baggage, I would just say, because just like I saw before, he's bringing so many players over from Jackson State and also a lot of people from the Porter, and it makes all the ones that were already there, kind of, left out and just, felt unwanted when it came to that. And I just felt like Deion, especially, he should see what he has first before making any type of changes. When it comes to every player and every person that's on that team, you need to know what drives them, what was missing inside of this organization, because you can say it was coaching, but it's other factors that go inside of this. Because what you did in Jackson State when it came to motivating them to motivating one in Colorado is not going to be the same, especially when it comes to their different cultures.
I agree. But this is a big deal. I have mixed feelings about it because there's a lot of athletes that went to Jackson State specifically for Coach Sanders. And of course, what he stands for. I mean, he's a Super Bowl champion. He is one of the top athletes that's ever played any sport. He's arguably, and he is the best cornerback in football history. And of course, he went to Florida State, won a championship there. So this man has winning in his blood. So everywhere he goes, he has always put that team or that organization on the map. And I don't doubt at all that he won't do that with Colorado, because Colorado finished 1-10 this past season. So they were the worst team in the Pac-12. And we know the Pac-12 has Utah. They have TCU, teams like that. Well, TCU's in the Big 12, excuse me. But you have teams like Utah, USC, who are, competing and have big programs going on for themselves. So bringing a personality like Coach Sanders and bringing him in there and telling these guys, hey, this is what I expect us to do. This is what we're going to do. Even this press conference, I'm bringing my own luggage. You guys need to be prepared to get to the transfer portal because we're changing this whole atmosphere around. But my thing is, I do feel bad for Jackson State. I do feel bad for those guys who really, just developed a love for the school, developed a love for the sport, the team, and of course the coaches. And for Deion to just leave, and I know he prepared them for this prior, saying, "Hey, this is not going to be a long-term deal." But it was a deal that he could not turn down. He just couldn't. Now I wish he could have went to USF, University of South Florida, with the Bulls down here in Tampa. I wish he could have went there because he is a Floridian. He went to school at Florida State and he won a championship there. He knows the Florida culture. Imagine him going to USF Bulls, where you have Tom Brady with the Bucks, you have the Lightning, you have teams that are very dominant, and you add a personality like him to the college atmosphere in Tampa. That would have been very huge. So I wish he could have went there. But Colorado, it's a little different than what I'm used to. I know for sure I won't be watching Colorado. And here's a picture right now of Coach Sanders. But I feel like this is a big deal for them, for Colorado. They're going to turn around because of what he did and what he's going to continuously do, and the culture he's going to bring. He's going to add a whole new system of coaches. His coaching staff is going to change. They actually got they're looking to land an Alabama assistant coach right from up under Nick Saban. So Deion's making a lot of moves. But what does this mean for the Pac-12, Jeremiah? Like I mentioned, you have USC, you have Utah, big teams in this division. What's going to happen now that Coach Sanders is there?
Well, first of all, I can think of the first thing that comes to my mind, and that's exposure. When it comes to Colorado right now, they're about to have all the glam and the lights on them right now to see what they're going to do and what they're going to produce over there. I mean, when it comes to Coach Brown, you already know just what kind of guy he stands for. You already know his resume. He's a Hall of Famer, and he just won, just like you just said, two SWAT championships, back to back. So him going over there, there's already big expectations, and plus him bringing over a lot of different people. They're looking to make changes and also keep going within their thing, actually take over. Because to me, Deion, he is mostly trying to prepare to have a name to try to go up against these big universities. If you just see his mindset. He's going from the HBCU, going to the Pac-12, and then soon keep going to try to verse teams like Alabama, or maybe the teams that talked, maybe down or didn't really think too much about him. He wants to prove a point that I can stand stand just right there next to you. Although there's a difference, but he's trying to build himself, and he's doing it step by step within each school.
I agree, and this is going to be a big deal. So we'll definitely see how the Pac-12 is going to look. That's going to be a thing to watch. Just Coach Sanders being there. Now let's head into the Final Four, the whole talk that everybody's been waiting for. What's going to happen? Who's going to move? Who's not? So let's talk about this. TCU and USC fall in their championship games on Saturday. TCU loses 28-31 in overtime to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. Then in the Pac-12 championship, Utah destroys USC 47-24. How will this shape the Final Four is the big question. But now we know, as of right now with the last hour, who's going to be in the Final Four. Georgia's number 1, Michigan number 2, TCU 3, Ohio State 4. Now you can see right here on the screen, this is the bracket of how it's going to look, who matches up with who. So Georgia will play Ohio State in the Peach Bowl, and Michigan will play TCU in the Fiesta Bowl. What is going to happen with this, Jeremiah? What is your take on this thing right here? Because I got a lot to say. Because for one, TCU should not be in there. They shouldn't, because they lost their championship. But go ahead, Jeremiah.
I will have to agree, because although I was like, TCU, they won in overtime, still with them having a bad game, that they were still close. But still, when you're trying to hit that top 4, it's almost you have to be perfect.
You have to win.
You literally have to win. And for you to lose in that championship after you was on this streak of undefeated all the way till you get to the championship is really alarming, because when the lights are on you at that specific moment, you cost your whole game away. And even though you try to fight back at the end, you still lose at the end of the day, because this is a lower ranked team, bringing it to you at the end of the day.
Right.
And for that Final Four, people do not underestimate Ohio State, because I know when many people would say, they could just get knocked out again. But I know they had that first taste of that loss when it came to Michigan. I know how that rivalry is. I'm not too sold on Michigan, but I'm also saying don't look over Ohio State, because they could fix those mistakes.
But I'm going to say this, though. We can't – this is the thing. Michigan, this is how I look at it. What we talked about last week, that Michigan had to go in there and destroy Purdue, and that's what they did, right? So they are proven now, like, okay, Michigan is not a team to mess with. When I look at Ohio State, the last 2 spots, TCU and Ohio State, the last time we saw Ohio State, they got destroyed at home against Michigan. That's inexcusable. TCU loses in the Big 12 championship to Kansas State. And usually the saying is you win and get in. I didn't realize that if you lose, you can still get in.
Yeah, I didn't understand that either, because they just moved Ohio State back up again. Because I always keep thinking I was about to be Alabama there again.
That's what I was thinking. I was preparing myself for that.
And I was like, there's no way that you guys should be doing that. But I mean, it's a different picture to see Ohio State, but I don't believe TCU really, because that game right there,
But
it looked
Ohio
just
State
very
shouldn't
suspect.
be. Ohio State should. If we're saying that TCU shouldn't be in, then Ohio State shouldn't be
I
in
would
either.
totally agree with
Because
you as well, because that's a big
Right,
rivalry game, and that can't happen.
and Ohio State, you didn't even make it to your division championship. You didn't make it. This is my thing. The first two teams, Georgia and Michigan, won their conference. Georgia beat up LSU 50-30. Michigan beat up Purdue in their Big Ten championship. You got the SEC champions, which is Georgia. You've got the Big Ten champions, Michigan. When we look at TCU, they did not win their conference. They lost to Kansas State. Now, could we make an argument that, okay, I always thought when it comes to the conference games, and now we have a playoff in college football, if you win the conference, you should be in the playoffs, right? That's how it goes in NFL. If you win the division, you're going to have one of the top seeds. You're going to be able to have at least a home game in your conference, right?
I agree.
Why is it in college where we have a bunch of conferences? You have the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, teams like that. Like, I'll give you an example. If we're gonna make this argument, Clemson won the ACC, but there's not one ACC team in here. You have two Big Ten teams, which is Michigan and Ohio State. TCU is the Big 12, and Georgia's the SEC. There's no Pac-12 team, and there's no ACC team. So that's why I know that there's a lot of different things that are not going right. There's things that are not moving in the right direction, because
Not at
all
all.
the conferences should be able to get into the playoffs. If you win your conference,
Yes, and I
should
feel
be
like
in
the
the
top
playoffs.
one for each one, and how
Exactly.
that's not happening yet, it is really beyond me, because I feel like, just like you said, every conference should be representing each side when it comes to this playoffs.
I
Just
agree.
like you said.
Like, even in the NFL, and I know it's NFL and college are totally different things, but we'll just talk about the similarities for a bit. You have the AFC division, or the AFC conference, and then you have the NFC conference. So you have those teams that play in that conference. They play throughout the year to see who stands which in both conferences. Whoever has the number 1 seed, the 2 seed, they play each other, and then whoever's the best team from that conference gets to go play in the Super Bowl.
But when
it should be the same thing with college. It should be the same.
With the new rule, do you think that can bring in a lot more schools? Because, they about to have the playoffs be expanded, like you said, in the next
12.
year.
Yeah.
So that could allow for more conferences to get inside. So it can be more represented, plus more competitive.
I agree. So we're going to hold that thought. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and talk about what Jeremiah's talking about, which is the college football playoff will now be extended to 12 teams in 2024. So we'll be right back with the short break.
Renting is everything. It's style at your doorstep. Off the runway and into your closet. It's every trend you've been dying to try, and every designer you've yet to discover. It's wearing it your way every time and making it count everywhere you go. It's never worrying about what to wear, because something new is always coming your way. That's why renting is everything. New styles, top designers, all for a flat monthly fee. Start your subscription at renttherunway.com.
Slow roasted over hickory fire and pulled by hand. This is the way pit pork has always been done. Pulled pork lovers, rejoice. The smoky old days are back at the Smoke Shack. From the creative team that brought you The Browning Project and Dead by Morning comes a new thriller that will change the way you look at white-collar crime forever. Falling from the Sky.
You're watching Jasmine Pollock's First Impressions Sports Talk. Be sure to join Jasmine every week for great conversation on the NBA, NFL, and a wide variety of sports topics. To see past episodes of First Impressions Sports Talk, go to YouTube and search First Impressions Sports Talk. You can connect with Jasmine on LinkedIn by searching Jasmine Pollock. And now, back to more First Impressions Sports Talk.
Welcome back to Jasmine's First Impressions Sports Talk. And the voices you just heard were from Kelly Johnson and Dion Hunter. If you like voiceover work done, you can contact Leon Thomas at theleonthomasgroup.com. If you'd like to be a guest on my show and see past episodes of my show, you go to my website at jasmineonsports.com. Now we're gonna wrap up that conversation. I want to go back to that about the college football playoff. That's the biggest topics that's been out the whole time. So the big news that happened this past week is the college football playoff. The committee has decided to extend it to 12 teams, and we will see that in 2024. So this is what we've been talking about. But my thing was, when we talked about it prior shows before, we were thinking they should have started, okay, if you do 4, then go to 8. Then maybe extend it to 12. Let's see how 8 teams look, and then go to 12. They automatically just jump to 12. So Jeremiah, what is your take on this? How would this shape up, and what does this do for the teams that we're going to see start jumping ship to different conferences? What does that look like?
Well, to me, I feel like it's going to make the things more competitive going forward. But still, at the same time, I feel like it's more money they're trying to get out of this as well. Because if you're trying to have 12 teams, that means it's going to be more prolonging of the playoffs when it comes to everything. That means you probably have to maybe start later or either earlier throughout the season and maybe come some game. But it all depends. And for these players that's going to be transferring, especially knowing that the 12 teams that's going to be coming in, you're going to have it's going to be a lot that's going through the transfer portal. And that's why I feel like when it comes to certain rules, I think that the whole league, they need to actually crack down on a lot of that talk when it comes to like these different players going through trade portals just because. Now, I understand if like certain situations where things are not going good, but if it's constantly they're doing it each year of a person doesn't like stay stationary, I think that is a problem. And then because it loses the factor of us just playing, like having your players and then just developing them rather than you just go out there and just having just each player always transporting like through the portal.
Yeah, when we look at this too, I think they should have started with 8 teams first. So we already have 4 now, and we've seen how that goes. But they should now move to, let's see how 8 teams look. Because I always thought those New Year's 6 bowls that happens, like the Cotton Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, things like that, right? When we look at things like that, I always thought, like, why don't we have those as college football playoff games? Even the conference games, like we have all these different conferences in college football. And I mentioned them before the midpoint break. But what I don't understand is the conference championship game should solidify what teams get in, what teams are there. Now I get, and I'm going to keep comparing it to the NFL. So you have teams, right, that will win their division. Like we know, I believe the Eagles will win the division, but that whole division is above 500. So all those teams could easily make the playoffs because of how good their the division is and how many games all those teams won. So that all determines, of course, it goes based off of strength of schedule. Who do you play? It goes what conference you're in, essentially. But you're going to see now, you might see more teams. You might see a lot of SEC teams in the 12. That's what I'm saying, because that's the strongest conference. But when you look at it, if you have the conference, and this is what I think should happen, whoever wins their conference has the best schedule should get a bye week. And then everybody else plays, those Citrus Bowl games, and they those Citrus Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, those New Year's 6 bowls, and compete, and then they have extended. But the only problem that's going to overlap is we have NFL playoffs coming. You have some NFL playoff games that are on Saturdays, and then you got some that are on Sundays. So that might overlap and different things like that. So either I don't know how they're going to do it, but it's going to be interesting. But I think they should have started in very small increments and then grew. I don't think they should have automatically jumped straight to 12. I think
Yeah,
they
because
should.
I wanted to ask you, like,
Yeah.
for you, what would you say, like, if it's like, going down to those 12 teams, okay, they're adding the 12, but let's just say a lot of them get, that same record to try to squeeze into that 12th spot or the 11th or 10th spot.
Man.
How would you kind of break that down to decide who's going to get in that 12? Because you can have ones that just have the same type of record and probably the same amount of difficulties within their
Right.
their schedule. So
Mhm.
those are going to be the hardest things. Now, 4, you already know you're going to have your teams that you can choose from. But when it comes to that 12, I think that's going to be the hardest choice trying to decide.
But that's what I was saying. Like, and that's another thing. That's even the NBA where you have now the play-in tournament. Are you going to incorporate something like that, or is that going to take too much time? It's all about timing. It's all about where things land, because we're used to the college football championship, the biggest championship, to be
Right.
in January. And then we have the Super Bowl in February. Are you going to extend? Are you going to have college football and NFL playoffs playing at the same time?
Because you're
Like,
talking
is
about,
that,
like,
what's that?
them going all the way to February.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. So it's like, do you want it to be that long, or like, what are we thinking about? And then you have to mention college basketball is going to take off because March Madness is coming up also.
Yes.
So how are they going to be able to get those things? How are they going to be able to do this? Now, I'm excited for it. I'm not saying that, oh, this is big, because I want them to extend it. But I feel like you start with 4. We see how the 4 goes. Okay, let's go to 8 teams. Let's see. Okay, let's talk about 8 teams. Then let's go to 12. Things like that. I don't think they should have automatically just jumped straight to 12, because, man, that's just going to be weird. So you mean to tell me, so let's say the number 12 team plays the number 1 team? Is that what they're trying to do? Like, and I just don't think that would be good football. I mean, the number 1 team in the country versus the number 12 team, that might maybe be a blowout. You know what I mean? That's like Georgia playing against who's in the top. Let's see who's in the 12. So I can say somebody like Tulane. They played very well, and they made it to their conference championship. So they are number 12. Georgia would destroy Tulane.
They would destroy.
But on the flip side of that, there might be teams at that 12th spot, that 11th spot, that 10th spot that, okay, we play the number 1 team, the top 3 teams, and they end up beating them and make a game out of it.
Upsets. Yes.
Yeah, so it's interesting. We've seen a lot of upsets this whole season. Like, and just to go back to the 4, the whole setup, Clemson should be somewhere in the mix just based off of them winning their conference. If you win your conference, you should get a spot in the playoffs. You cannot lose or not make it to your conference championship at all and expect to play in the 4. That is, for me, there's a lot of teams that won their conference, but they're not going to be in the 4. But Ohio State didn't even go to a conference championship. They're in. Mm-hmm. TCU lost in their conference championship. They're in. You have teams like Clemson who won. They won their division. They won their conference. They should be in. When we look at Utah won the Pac-12. They're not going to put Utah in. Kansas State beat TCU in the championship game, in the Big 12 championship game. That means Kansas State should be in. That's just how I look at it.
Right. I do agree.
It should be based off of that. That's all I'm saying. What do you think, Jeremiah?
Yeah, because I totally agree. But at the same time, I do worry about the committee as well. Because I know at the same time, they think about the money firsthand when it comes to everything. And sometimes the competitiveness can go outside the window whenever they are talking about, the money at the same time, just like how many times they squeezed Alabama back in previous times, or they've been great teams. Mm-hmm. But they also want to have, a lot of connections inside as well. And I'm just hoping as these playoffs go forward, they be fair to a lot of teams that work that hard to actually get to that spot and make in the playoffs.
Because what they say is the 2-loss thing. Okay, you have 2 losses, you might not be able to. But it's like, okay, but
and they don't treat it the same as the other teams. Yeah,
exactly. So so Clemson, for instance, we're gonna keep saying Clemson and Alabama, right? Yes. So Clemson is number 2. right? Or no, they lost 2 games. Excuse me, they lost 2 games.
Yes.
But they still won the ACC. But they're not in because they lost those 2 games. Doesn't really make sense to me. Then
Doesn't.
Alabama has 2 losses, but they're ranked above Clemson.
And
It
they're like in
just
the
doesn't make
what?
sense.
Yes, because Clemson dropped all the way down to like
10,
the
number 10.
14th of yes.
Yeah, they number
So
10. Yeah.
of number 10. And Alabama, they just dropped maybe like 4 spots or 4 or 5 spots, and it didn't feel right because Alabama, even from before, they escaped so many games, especially the game that we watched against Texas. The other game that we watched, I mean, they lost to LSU.
They could have lost to Texas A&M.
Yes, and you can just see, even when it came to their losses, they don't look like they belonged in that top 4 or even in the top 3. So having them to be like sneaking almost back inside was really alarming.
But I just feel like, and this is no diss to Ohio State or TCU. I'm not saying they're bad teams. It's just, if we're looking at it from a standpoint of the top 2 teams, Georgia and Michigan, they won their conference and they had convincing seasons. Whereas TCU, okay, they had a convincing season and they lost in the championship. Then Ohio State, you didn't make it to your championship at all, and you get destroyed on your own field against your rival.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm like, okay, there's a discrepancy here.
Because they had the highest expectations. So you get destroyed and you were favorites in that game. That's unacceptable.
Utah should be in.
Yes.
And this is good that the college football playoff is extended, because now you can say Utah should be in because they won their conference.
Yep.
Clemson should be in. Kansas State should be in, even though, okay, they might not be one of the top seeded teams, but they still won their conference.
Right.
And the team, look, in NFL, it doesn't matter if you're the number 1 seed or the 6th seed or the 7th seed. You go in there, you play the game. There's no, the second you know, until it's time to get the standings. But you lose in the playoffs, you lose. Those championship games, if you lose, you're out. I don't care how good your record was. That's how I look at it. But let's go into the Lakers, the final topic of the day. So the Lakers been hot. I mean, especially Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is playing like an MVP. This guy dropped 55 points. What was that?
55
points? 55 points against the Wizards. Jeremiah, let's talk about these Lakers. What has turned them around? What has been the reason the Lakers have been so successful after have a horrendous start to begin with?
One, of course, is going to start with their health. They are healthy right now. I know at the beginning, of course, you know, their shooting wasn't the best. And although LeBron was in and out when it comes to the injury, but I think when it came to LeBron being out for that long, it put a battery in back of Anthony Davis to say, I have to step up.
Yes.
And with those games, he went on a stretch of having 30 points per game. And it was just ridiculous numbers that you would see. Okay, I remember this AD now. This is the one that came here when we got him from the Pelicans. That's the one I was there in the Pelicans. Like, you just see those different flashes, and this allows LeBron to not do too much, because now LeBron can just get his 20-something per night, and then plus it will allow him to just get AD the ball and assist, because it's just all about feeding AD right now. He is their best player on that team. And not to mention Russell Westbrook, he's giving them solid numbers, and not just on the points, but we talking about assists, 15 assists last night. You know, you can't ask for him to play a perfect game than they did yesterday.
And I see Akeem's comments. Yes, AD is at when he was playing with New Orleans, he's at that form again. And that has always been the question. So when they first won the championship, when AD's first year with the Lakers, he won the championship with them, and they were just bullying people off the court, and they end up winning. And that was in the bubble. Remember that? That was the COVID year. So AD now, through the stretch of these games, he's the first player since Kobe to do that, have back-to-back 30-plus games like that. I mean, what AD is doing, and LeBron doesn't have to do too much. LeBron's still going to be LeBron. LeBron's still going to give you over 25 points. but you see he's staying in that 25, 28 range. But we still know LeBron can go off for 40. We still know any given night, LeBron can say, you know what, I'm going to take over. And Russell Westbrook has finally accepted the role of playing coming off the bench. And that is one of the biggest reasons. If he is able to give you those assists like that, like 15 assists like he did last night, even though he had 6 points, he still gave you serviceable minutes. He still gave you those assists. He still gave you those, defensive shears that he had. And guess what? Another thing, the turnovers are declining.
Yes.
The question was, this team was turning the ball over. They were being sloppy, and now they're getting into their element. Now they're playing much cleaner basketball. They're playing smarter basketball. I think they still need to go get somebody on the outside just to be on the safe side about shooting. But I feel like when we look at these Lakers, if they continue to play this, if AD starts to play like this, they are a contender.
They
I don't
can
care what
squeeze
anyone
into
says.
that top 4 spot if they keep playing this consistent.
Yes. And on top of that, I'm looking at the West right now. It's wide open.
Yeah, it is.
They are. The Clippers, there's a lot of questions with their health as well.
They're up and down.
When's the last time we seen Kawhi? When's the last time we seen Kawhi?
I don't know. He comes back, and then the next day is his knee. He's out for resting.
Something's hurting. He has, and this is, I'm not going to get into the whole load management thing because that does irritate me, but when we look at the West right now, a healthy Lakers team, a healthy LeBron, a healthy AD, and then, of course, a Russell Westbrook who is playing his role, they're going to be a dangerous team for anybody. Yeah,
because Jazz, look, like they blew out the Nets. They had a big win against Milwaukee,
which is the number one defensive team in the league, by the way.
Yes. And Giannis having 44 and AD having like 48 points, like big numbers, him performing at that high level, he's right now leading MVP for me.
Yes, and he's playing out of his mind right now. I mean, shout out to Anthony Davis, because we've always wondered, what is his drive? For the past couple of years, he's had these injuries, he hasn't played, and now it seems like he has that dog again, that like I'm back, like that he's on a redemption tour in a way. Like, I mean, everyone has doubted him, they've questioned his ability, his durability, and different things like that. When I tell you, if Anthony Davis continues to play, he is the best big man in basketball right now. We look at Giannis. Giannis is phenomenal. But the skill set that Anthony Davis has with his shooting, with him being physical, the way he can get to the rack, the skills for a big man is a problem. It's a problem. And he is starting to play that role. He's down low now. I don't want to see Anthony Davis on the perimeter. I just don't want to see it. I want to see him down low in the paint competing. And that's what he's doing right now. They are feeding him, and this man is averaging 30 points a game. This is crazy. It is crazy. Even when LeBron was injured for that 3 to 4 game stretch, this man put the team on his back. And that's what LeBron needs right now. That's why they brought Anthony Davis in, because now the Lakers, you have to think about your future. When LeBron does retire, what is the team going to look like without him? If Anthony Davis plays like this, they're going to be a team to mess with for a long, even post LeBron. So I'm really excited for the Lakers. I want the Lakers to get back into the mix, because it's, the Lakers are one of the best teams in history. They're one of the best franchise, the biggest franchise in history. So, I mean, this is a big, big deal for the Lakers to get in there and compete. I'm really excited for the Lakers. LeBron staying healthy. Westbrook is playing his role. They're playing defense, and it seems like, and I see Leon says, will David Ham last an entire season? When the injuries kick in and the load management issues come up, Ham will be gone. I don't think the Lakers have load management issues. I think it's strictly the Clippers, because when we look at the Clippers have load management issues. Obviously, with Kawhi, he started that whole trend. And here's another comment. Then once Ham leaves, all the talk will be, is James coaching the team? Can he be coached? I feel like what David Ham's doing, him coming from Milwaukee, he was the assistant coach over there. He comes over here to the Lakers, a big franchise. You have a lot of big shoes to fill. When you coach the Lakers, you're coaching one of the best franchises in basketball. It's them and the Celtics. Those are the top two. So when you go there, they expect championship. They expect to win. They expect to be in the playoffs every year.
And so far, the players are buying in for it.
They're buying in. he is able, whatever he's doing, he's able to get Russell Westbrook to play in that role. I mean, he's doing something correct. He's got Anthony Davis where he needs to be, far as where he needs to be down there in the post. He needs to be down there in the paint and causing issues. He's unguardable. He is unguardable.
Yes.
How he's playing is ridiculous. But the Lakers are on fire. Please watch out, everybody, because if the Lakers are on fire, everybody's in trouble. Because you know LeBron is a winner. LeBron has been there. They have experience. They have people that been in are battle tested. They've been to championships. They've been to conference championships. They've been in the playoffs. So this is going to be very interesting coming in December, and we're going to head into the playoffs soon, the play-in tournament. They have to keep winning and get there, and we're going to see, because the West is wide open. I'm not sold on any team in the West right now. Even though the Warriors are the Warriors, there's still some questions about the Warriors. But that wraps up First Impression Sports Talk. Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you, Remy, for always being a great producer. Thank you, Leon. Thank you, Akeem. Thank you, everyone, for giving your comments. We're going to be coming back tonight. Make sure we're going to have a special announcement tonight regarding the two twin brothers, Richard and Sean Westerland, who their basketball teams play this Saturday. And I will air that video Saturday morning to see, if they're prepping their guys for that big matchup. So see you guys next Monday for more First Impression Sports Talk, more NFL, more college, and more basketball. See you guys later.